Hello, YouTube. We are back with a class guide, the first class guide for 75. We'll be looking at the Lore Master. In addition to the traits and legendary traceries that we showcased in one of our other videos for all the classes, this video will also showcase a little bit of gear and virtue discussion, as well as a couple of tips and tricks for red line and yellow line in case this is your first level cap that you're making a lore master and you haven't seen the previous lore master videos. So to start with, let's start with virtues quickly. So this level cap, as opposed to 65, because we don't need as much morale is way easier to get this expansion. There's no overtuned dungeons and raids, so the high morale pool or threshold that you need to meet is much lower. You can get away with, honestly, like 6k. I would say like 6.5 to 7k unbuffed. Over 7k if you're looking at tier 2. But tier 1 stuff, you could do like 6.5k pretty easily unbuffed, I would say. That you can do pretty easily with gear now. And are like 4 of the 5 health virtues, right? We always have fidelity, fortitude, honor. And then if you wanted a little bit of extra morale, you could go loyalty. Justice at this point now gives you less morale overall than loyalty. So out of the 5, justice is the lowest. Loyalty is more. Loyalty is also just a little bit more tank focused. But if you want that nice boost of morale, loyalty is still good. Other options that we can now consider, because we don't need as much morale because it's just so easy to get, like I mentioned, is wit and confidence. This is both for red and yellow, or blue if you are one of the few blue lore masters out there. This allows us to just use more of the virtues. We still don't need wisdom, and you could look at tolerance if you need more tactical mitigation, but it should be pretty easy to get with gear alone. Wisdom is not totally useless, but it's almost useless in that it is so easy to hit the mastery cap this expansion. The mastery cap is 4,500 or 4,500, and it's so easy to reach that with gear that wisdom just becomes completely useless, in my opinion. So that's why I'm looking at wit and confidence. Confidence gives us the crit rating, which again is actually quite easy to get, but it also gives us a little bit of finesse. Wit is also good for that reason, where it gives us a little bit more finesse and a tiny bit of crit. So finesse is really good, even in red. It's more useful for yellow, but even in red, because of the requirement to you need to be able to hit enemies with your debuffs, or you want your, Nth go to war, not get resisted type thing, right? So you want finesse. Ideally, what you want to aim for is about, I think 25 to 30% is the sweet spot. So I'll still need a little bit more, but 25 to 30% is the sweet spot. I would say 30% more for yellow. 25% for red should be okay, but that's just something to consider. And you can get there's some good pieces of gear that we'll go over that'll give you more finesse. So that's why I think at this level cap, definitely still run fidelity, honor, and fortitude, and then run wit and or confidence, depending on what you need, and then either loyalty if you want the morale, and you're only going to run like loyalty and wit, or loyalty and confidence. If you don't want the morale, then you can just do confidence and wit, or wit and tolerance if you're that desperate for more tactical mitigation. But that's kind of what I would recommend. And that's for red, yellow, and blue. let's move on to the trait lines. All right, so let's talk about red line here. So this is kind of what I would recommend for majority of scenarios in red. Basically what we're doing from 65 to 75 is we're finishing off potent sigils, and then we have 1 point remaining, which I've just stuck here in Mighty Wind to just give us the extra gust of, or give us a 25% chance where Gust of Wind will spread Burning Embers to other enemies in an AoE scenario. You could do a 20% chance of Gust of Wind to tier up Burning Embers, which isn't terrible, but I just think that I'd rather take the chance of spreading Burning Embers than tearing it up, because tearing it up is so easy with just Wizard's Fire, obviously. So that's kind of why I recommend the Mighty Wind one. If you really wanted to, you could do the fire skills, have the, you know, we get the shield chance off of it, boosting your defenses and reflecting some damage. This isn't bad. It's more of like a, do you want a slightly defensive choice or a slightly offensive choice? I go with the slightly offensive choice because we're not really, there's no scenario where we're just going to be dying a whole lot, just because the tuning of these dungeons is a lot easier than what we're used to at 65. So that's why I've stuck the point there. There is another option that you could do here, where instead of putting everything into Ring of Fire and or Cracked Earth, oh, and I guess we needed a point in Unyielding Sweep, so I've also put a point there just to finish that off. So we have 10 points here. So we do definitely want Ring of Fire at least once. And this is where you kind of have some options now to work with. Let me just make sure. Yeah. So I liked doing Cracked Earth because we used Cracked Earth to buff the damage of Ents Go to War. And it's just a nice extra ability that we hit occasionally, so I like just buffing the damage. But what you could do is you could put some points into Hunting Instinct instead. Some people also like leaving 1 point in Ring of Fire. I like the amount of damage Ring of Fire does. However, it's also a situation where you need to be, you know, in melee kind of thing. So you put 1 point into Ring of Fire if you wanted to, just to have the skill, but then you can put these 8 points into Hunting Instinct, and now you have 20% more damage to Call to Pet, which is your, 20% more damage to Call to Lynx is pretty significant. That's definitely not something to shy about. Like, this is really good damage. But it's just kind of a matter of like, well, if I'm going to be in melee, Ring of Fire is going to do more damage than Lynx. But if I'm not in melee, then buffing Lynx damage is just better. I still like doing Burning Earth to get that extra Cracked Earth damage because it's a skill that's on a short cooldown, so it's just some nice quick damage when our main cooldowns are off. And like I mentioned previously with buffing Ents Go to War, it's just, we're always hitting this skill, so there's no reason not to buff it when we're always using it. So then at this point, we have 5 points, so we could still put 2 points into Hunting Instinct and get to 10%, and then we have 1 point remaining where you could also just buff Ring of Fire or just put the 1 point into Mighty Wind or Fire Shield, depending on what you're looking at or what you want to do. But in my opinion, and in most scenarios, I just like buffing Ring of Fire, and I'll put myself in a scenario where Ring of Fire is coming off cooldown. I'm going to put myself in melee if I can, just to get that damage, because the Ring of Fire damage is really good. Alrighty, let's talk about our traceries quickly here. So, if you haven't made a lore master yet, then this will all be new. Oh, I can't open both. Of course not. Alright, so then we're just looking. So for class legacies, we're looking at Sticky Gourd, Burning Embers damage, and Burning Embers critical chance. If you've made a lore master previously and you followed these guides, then the one new one that we're adding is Burning Embers critical chance and multiplier. That is one of the new ones. Then the other class legacy items is staff strike damage, lightning strike critical chance and multiplier, and Ents Go to War damage. Ents Go to War is also one of the new ones that we've added at this level cap. Staff strike or staff skill damage is really good because we do of course spam staff strike and we spam staff sweep. So just it's a lot of damage that we do with those skills. So that's why buffing them is just really helpful. Lightning skills, of course, buffs lightning strike and lightning storm, which is just some of our highest hitting skills next to Ents Go to War, so that's why we buff those. And because, like I mentioned, Ents Go to War is one of our highest hitting skills, so that's where we do Ents Go to War. I know some people like buffing Nature's Fury, and the reason why I've opted into buffing Lightning Storm and Ents Go to War first is mostly because we have the ability to reset it, right? We can reset it with Call of Valor. So because we can use the skills more frequently than Nature's Fury, that is why I've decided to buff those skills instead. Burning Embers, we just spam all the time, so that's why these two are picked. And then Sticky Gourd is just another one of those low cooldown skills. We're using it all the time, and we can also reset the skill, so there's no reason to just not buff it, right? Not increase the damage of the Sun with legacies. The other legacies or traceries that we're using, we take Heraldry of the Sparrow because, once again, the mastery cap is so easy to hit. The mastery cap, as I mentioned earlier, is 4,500. I'm in some questing gear, I'm in some low crafted gear, I'm not in full raid gear yet, and I'm well over the mastery cap. So there is no reason why I should have, was it Heraldry of the Owl, which gives you will? Because the will is just going to waste. Agility gives us more crit rating than will does. I'll put a little stat breakdown in the description as well as the stat caps, but if you look at this, agility is giving us like twice the amount of crit rating, right? Every point of agility gives us 2 points of crit rating, where will is it's just a 1-to-1 ratio. One will gives us 1 crit rating. So if we're already capped at tactical mastery, we might as well get more agility where we can, because it's going to give us twice the amount of crit. So that's why we take Heraldry of the Sparrow instead. The physical mastery, yes, is obviously not super useful, but we're doing it for the crit over anything else, and it still has really good vitality. We then take single target attack crits and single target attack damage. The next ones that we will be getting are AoE, because of course all of our big abilities are AoE. So the next couple of level caps are Sticky Gourd, Lightning Storm, Ring of Fire, Ents Go to War, and Nature's Fury is going to see some insane damage increases. So that is something to look forward to. But for now, we're just taking the single target attack damage and single target attack damage crit, and then we take 2 heroic precisions for, of course, the 3% crit chance and the critical rating. Let's talk about gear, since we've been talking about stats quickly before we move into yellow. So because our mastery is quite high and our crit rating I think you can get to like 4.2, maybe even 4.5 in like full raid gear and the correct jewelry, it's super easy to hit. So where our gear kind of focuses and shifts to is actually morale. So the Limelight Gorge jewelry I have is actually the tank set, right? This is the Martyr set, which gives us the set bonus of 25 vitality, but then the on use ability is just the temporary shield that also then heals after the shield is removed in combat. So none of these jewelry pieces give me morale. Will, our main stat. They all give me might and vitality with a little bit of agility. But this is so that, one, our crit is being increased with the agility, and might gives us finesse rating, which will does not. We talked about how our mastery is already capped, our crit is pretty easy, but we talked about how we kind of want a little bit more finesse. So funny enough, might gives us finesse. It's like a 1.5 ratio kind of. So it's not a lot of finesse, but it's still something. If this was the tactical damage set, I would actually be gaining less finesse than this set right now, which is really weird to think about. So that is why I've decided to use kind of the tank set, and then the necklace that we're getting from our sigils and stuff. I'm actually considering even building towards this one here. It's an insane amount of morale, but it's also a lot of finesse, right? If I needed the tactical mitigation, I could do the other defensive necklace, but I'm strongly considering this one. I obviously have to build up to it still. The tactical ones, they are a lot more crit, which is good. So if I need the crit, that is an option, but they don't have finesse on them, which is kind of the main stat that I want. So that's something that I'm considering. And I mean, you can never have too much morale. It's not like they give will, so I'm not losing out on main stat that way. So I thought that was something to consider. For even more crit though, you can actually do the physical necklaces. And I think they also give a little bit more finesse. So this is also an option to consider. But I really think that these two here, depending on if you want more tactical mitt or the finesse, are the choices to go for your neck. So this is going down the Onyx necklace line, right? The worn Ancient Onyx, just the Ancient Onyx, and then the Ancient Onyx and Emerald and Ruby. Right, so the Onyx line is kind of what we want to go for with our jewelry, and then you can kind of decide, do you need the tactical mitigation at that point, or do you just want the extra finesse? Because at that point you should be at the crit rating cap, and you'll definitely be at the tactical mastery cap. The cloaks that we'll want, you can either, once again, I think, do the tank one. You could do the Wizard's Cloak, because it is a lot of crit rating, so there's nothing really wrong with that. But if you wanted the extra crit rating and finesse, then the Acrobatics Cloak is actually just another option. It's so weird thinking about, we're back at a state in the game where we're not getting our main stat armor pieces anymore, because the crafted jewelry, the crafted armor, and our set bonus, or our armor set pieces, will give us so much mastery and crit that we can kind of just branch out into other stats now. So yeah, that's the cloak and neck. And then for the armor, there's a lot of weird things with the armor at this level cap, such as there's a lot of scenarios like these boots here, where you're gaining you gain more fate than any other stat. But fate doesn't do anything for us. Fate is a useless stat. Yes, it gives us more power, but we're not running out of power. If you ever run out of power, you can just give yourself power with Power of Knowledge. Power should never be your concern as a lore master. So the best boots I think you can get, honestly, is these crafted boots. The Great River crafted boots. It gives us some crit rating, it gives us some finesse rating, and it gives us our main stat and a decent amount of vitality. There might be a rare drop from raid that's slightly better, but before raid, this is essentially your best option. There's nothing really better than it. So, and you're not going to be wearing. It's not like you're going to instantly replace them with tier 1 armor, right? So, these boots are probably the best. The only other armor piece that's a little bit awkward is the chest piece. Now, I'm looking at the tier 3, but just so you all know, the armor stats do not change between sets, right? So 94 will, 46 fate, 142 crit rating, and 236 finesse. And this is the blue set, but if I switch it to the red set, it's exactly the same. 94 will, 46 fate, 142 crit rating, 236 finesse. So the stats don't change. But yeah, the chest piece is the only other piece that's a little bit weird because it doesn't have any vitality on it, but it does give us still some decent crit and some decent finesse. So this is a piece to consider. But otherwise, your 4 set bonus and your other armor will just be helmet, shoulders, gloves, and legs. So this is the set that you'll use in red, right? It's giving you fire damage and lightning storm resets. Was it Wizard's Sigil on critical hits? And then the yellow set being a 5-second blinding flash duration, so longer mezzes, and then improves your water lore, making it last longer, and it gives it extra pulses, which is really, really nice. Yeah, but you'll get the same thing. You'll do head, shoulders, gloves, and legs for the 4 set bonus. You'll have crafted boots, and then either you can take one of. You can either just keep the red version, the yellow version, or the blue version if you wanted to mix and match. To get the just to have a chest piece for the finesse and crit. Otherwise, you can get the Great River crafted piece as Lore Master. So, right there, you're gaining. If we were to compare the two, right, you're gaining a lot less vitality, I believe. Oh, right, it doesn't have vitality. So you're actually going to gain more morale with the Great River piece, but you're gaining less finesse and but you're going to gain slightly more crit. So you're gaining more morale, slightly more crit, but you're losing out on the finesse. So if you really need the finesse, go with the chest piece from Orthanc. If you don't need the finesse and you need that extra crit, or you want that extra morale, then just take the Great River piece, and it'll be fine. And so that's for obviously yellow and red. The rest of the jewelry, right, would just get Great River pieces. I don't have them just yet, but just get Great River. This is the Theodred stuff. The Great River pieces are very similar. They just have slightly more stats, and I think it's, when I did the math, it's like 300 more crit, 300 to 400 more crit from upgrading from Theodred to Great River, and you're also gaining a little bit of extra finesse in some scenarios. So with the extra 300 to 400 more crit than what I'm currently wearing, I'm already at that's very close to the crit cap, and I'm not even in the full raid armor yet. So yeah, crit and mastery, super easy to hit at this level cap. Alrighty, now let's talk about let's do yellow. So yellow trait setup. At this point, right, this is what our tree looked like at 65, and we kind of have some options to work with. We can increase our tactical damage, which is kind of mainly what our role is as a yellow lore master is we're a debuff class that can actually do a lot of damage. We can do a lot of damage as we level up as a support or debuff class. So that's kind of what we're building toward. Excuse me. So that's kind of what we're building towards. If you didn't want, like, if you aren't worried about outgoing healing and stuff like that, what you can do is remove 5 points from Mending Lore, 5 points from Shield of Knowledge, giving you an extra 10 points essentially. And then what you can do is like finish off the tactical damage. You can, increase your lightning damage. You can give yourself Storm Strike, right? So that'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points. So then you have 4 left. So then you could, you could put more into Lightning Storm. You could increase your fire damage. You could get increased grace periods or stun durations, right? If you didn't want to deal with the damage just yet, then because we have 6 points here, we could flat out just boom, yellow tree is done, right? You've got your grace periods for crowd control, and you've got your max stun duration, right? So you've got all of your max CC capabilities, which does have its uses. So this is also something that you could set up. It's kind of, we don't have enough points to get really far into the tree of red just yet, and we don't really need anything from the top in blue just yet. So for yellow, this is kind of a weird level cap where you can kind of just mix and match and pick what you want. I don't really need the outgoing healing effects. Let's go for more damage. Or maybe I do want the healing effects because this fight specifically demands it. So then let me just increase my stun duration and CC stuff, and you can do it that way. It's kind of totally up to you. There isn't really a super optimal thing aside from if you're doing a DPS race, then you're gonna want as much damage as possible, but it is very minor at this point. It's not super significant. And then our legendary items for yellow would be the Air Lore Potency, Ancient Craft Duration, and Power Restored. And then Fire and Frost Lore, Beacon of Hope Healing, and Staff Skill Damage. So the newest ones that are being added at this level cap is the Staff Skill Damage for 2 reasons. 1, the finesse is really nice. It does come with finesse. And 2, because we're at the point now where we're branching out into damage, and we talked about getting Storm and Staff. If you were to remove like some Mending Lore and the Shield of Knowledge, you can kind of work your way down to Storm and Staff. Now all of a sudden the Staff skill damage is going to be increased significantly, right? Staff Strike is going to do a lot of damage now, which is just nice to have in yellow. The other one that was new to this level cap is the Power Restored, mostly actually because of the Vitality, and there isn't really any other options to get right now. It's not like we can use, Sticky Gourd, right? And we don't have Ents Go to War. We don't have a lot of lightning skills right now. So just sharing more power is kind of our only other option. And we're really just taking it for some extra vitality, right? But that is we take Ancient Craft just because Ancient Craft is one of our super important and main skills we use as a lore master in yellow. So we just obviously want to buff its duration. Also comes with some finesse. Air lore potency is really good. It just helps the tanks survive better, and we also get some outgoing healing with it. There's not a lot to actually get in yellow, right? Whoops, that is the red one. There we go. We have the Fire and Frost lore, which is our main 2 debuffs. We obviously want to buff that. Also comes with Finesse. Beacon of Hope healing, I think it's the only healing legacy or tracery that we actually get in that's specific to Yellow Line. So increasing the healing of Beacon of Hope by 33% is pretty significant. And then it also comes with outgoing healing rating. And then we already talked about Staff Strike. So in addition to those, you'll get... This is where you can do Heraldry of the Owl, because just because of the outgoing healing mostly. If you wanted to, you could still keep the Heraldry of the Sparrows and have 2 of those, just because crit is still important in Yellow Line, and my crit rating is quite low, so you could consider doing Heraldry of the Sparrow in Yellow Line for that crit, because of course after we crit with 8 skills or 7 skills or whatever it is, we buff our debuff skills, right? We get Empowered Wind Lore, Empower Fire Lore, Burning Embers, Beacon Hope, etc., right? Our skills get buffed, so that's why crit is important. Because we just really only need morale on Yellow Lore Master. We aren't really focused at damage at this point. Just take some base morale multiplier. Increase your morale and vitality and get a nice boost in morale, and then you're gonna get 2 perfect healings to increase our outgoing healing rating, and then you also want the area of effect cooldown, or count, sorry, not cooldown, to increase our AoE abilities. So that means that when Lore does more, Ancient Craft is going to hit more targets. When Burning Embers is turned into an AoE, it's going to hit more targets. Our healing will actually also hit more targets as well. Gust of Wind will hit more. Bane Flare hits more targets, right? So it just not only does it increase our CC capabilities, but it also increases our healing capabilities and damage capabilities as well in yellow. So this is why area effect target count is super nice to have. Alrighty, now let's talk about the quick tips for Redline. So the main things that you want to focus on with red is, 1, you want to use a frost skill after a fire skill for this one important debuff, right? So just quickly, if I was to use a fire skill and then a frost skill, we now have Brittle Frost, which increases the target's incoming crit chance. So, right, so everybody who attacks this target has a 5% chance higher to crit. And you just want to maintain that as much as possible. So the easiest ways to apply that are, of course, Wizard's Frost, but also Staff Sweep. Staff Sweep does not only increases our crit chance, right? It gives us a crit chance buff, but it also does frost damage. So a nice little opener, especially when we're in melee, is to kind of just use Staff Sweep right away and then move into our big rotation here, which we'll go into in a second once I reset it. But that's kind of the main thing that you always want to maintain as you're kind of doing your rotation, is just to remember to use a frost skill after a fire skill. The other key thing is getting maximum uses out of Empowered Wizard's Frost and Empowered Gust of Wind, right? When we use Nature's Fury, these 2 skills kind of essentially become empowered. Most people think that you can only get 2 uses out of each of them, but you can actually get 3 uses out of Wizard's Frost, or the Empowered Frost, if you time your skills correctly. So I'm going to showcase it, and then I'll kind of break it down after. So just a nice little simple starting rotation. And we do Ring of Fire, and we go into Nature's Fury. Alright, so that was 1 use. Immediately go into this the second use. Empowered Fire, and then boom, Empowered Frost. And we can get it off just before it switches. The key to it is that you need to use the Empowered Frost immediately after every single, like, when it comes off cooldown, use it immediately. If you hesitate for a second, it goes away. You can make it easier for yourself if you like animation cancel something with Light of the Rising Dawn. So like after you use the first Wizard's Empowered Frost, you can animation cancel it to get the cooldown up slightly faster, because the cooldown doesn't actually start until the animation is over. So you can cancel one of the animations if you wish, but I just showcased that you don't need to. You just have to be really good with the timing. Basically, you can get 1 or 2 skills off, depending on which ones you use, between cooldowns. So Empowered Frost, Empowered Fire, reset your Burning Embers, or, you know, throw in a staff strike and a lightning strike. Then start to get ready to use Empowered Frost. Then use your second Empowered Fire, use a Sticky Gourd, another Lightning Storm, and then get ready for the third use. The key is maximizing your uses out of the Empowered Frost. So I'll showcase it one more time just to show it, and we'll do more of like a real kind of rotation that you'll look at in a high DPS scenario. So Burning Embers, Wizard's Fire, Staff Sweep. Let's throw down Sticky Gourd and Ring of Fire, Nature's Fury, Frost, Fire, Staff Sweep. Get our links out now. Let's do Frost, Lightning Strike, Lightning Storm, Empowered Fire, Frost. We got the third ability off. Reset our crit buff with Staff Sweep, and then just go into a normal rotation here, where we now start using Ents Go to War. I like to animation cancel Ents Go to War. And now we reset our abilities, and we can use them all again. Right, our crit buff wore off, so we want to reset it. And that's kind of the rotation. Always just anytime you use Gust of Wind, anytime you use Burning Embers, Wizard's Fire. Like, that's the best place to use it. It's not one of our main abilities, but it's a good way to maintain the Frost debuff when Staff Sweep is off cooldown. But yeah, that's kind of a nice little simple rotation, and the key thing there is getting the extra use out of Nature's Fury. Once I'm out of comment here, I'll switch to yellow just to talk about yellow. I will not be going into blue. I have not played a lot of blue, and blue just does not have as much value in a raid scenario. It's really good solo. It's really good in PvP, but we obviously can't PvP on this server. In terms of a raid scenario, though, it's just not as good as red, and then also yellow also has its great uses. So the key thing with yellow is just that you want to maintain wind lore, fire and frost lore all the time. Anytime Ancient Craft is off cooldown, you obviously use it. Keep it on cooldown. Keep Sticky Tar on cooldown. Outside of that, right, you have your pet skills, your links to increase incoming damage. And then the other key thing is just getting our fancy, right, our stored powers. So I've got 3, whoopsies, did not mean to hit Bait Flare there. Whenever we crit, there was a crit. So there's another crit. Our crits also work off of our heals. Oh, and I think I just... Yeah, I did actually just trigger it. So when we... Stored power, I might just have to pop the main skill. Yeah, I'll just pop the main skill. So when we get our empowered abilities, right? The two main ones that you want to look at are Empowered Wind Lore, because it goes from 5% to 7.5%. And Gust of Wind, because Gust of Wind in yellow applies the incoming crit damage debuff, but only when we are empowered, right? So that's the only way to trigger this crit buff while in yellow. If there's a red lore master in your raid, you don't need to worry about it as much. But if you're the only lore master and in yellow, you want to try to maintain that crit buff as much as you can. So the two main things that you should try to cycle with as you crit with your abilities, you should be able to always maintain the 7% incoming damage with Wind Lore. If you're getting extra crits, which is why you want a high crit rating in yellow still, the other thing you want to try to maintain all the time is the Gust of Wind crit debuff, or incoming crit chance debuff. And that's kind of the only thing for yellow, really, that you need to worry about. Warding Lore is good if you know that the raid is going to take a bunch of incoming damage, so you know a big hit's coming. Place that down, everybody stands in it, and you'll take less damage. For yourself, for a great... If, like, you are going to take a whole lot of damage, CL Ends is a great skill, because what it does is it reduces our incoming damage by 40% or whatever. Or, sorry, I guess it's a 60 or a 55% incoming damage reduction, because it reduces our incoming damage, the incoming damage by a multiplier of 45. The wording on it is always weird, but anyways, when you're going to take a big hit, use CL Ends, and you'll survive. And it's so it's just a good defensive to use. You can survive a lot as a yellow lore master as long as you know what's coming and you're planning accordingly. We have a big hit coming, warding lore, or you know you're going to take a lot of damage. CL Ends, put some water lore on yourself, and then you'll pretty much survive anything that this level cap can throw at you. All right, I know that was a lot, but I tried this time to make the guide a little bit more helpful to people that haven't made a lore master yet. So I'm hoping that if you haven't made a lore master yet, or this is the first level cap that you're playing a lore master, some of this there's just more information for you to take in. Maybe you have played a lore master before and you've learned some things, but ideally, if you've heard a majority of these spiels, then you skip past it and you didn't need the information because you already had it, and you got what you wanted from the video with the gear. But yeah, hopefully you found this helpful. Thank you for stopping by and watching the video. If you did enjoy the video, leave a like, leave a comment. Tell me how much you like Lore Master, how much you like the level cap compared to 65. I will have the next character I'm leveling is Guardian, and then I still have Champion, Hunter. We gotta do a Hunter one, Berg, Captain. I have Barorning to level. I have lots to level, and so lots of class guides still coming. But of course, if I don't have your class guide up, there's always the universal class guide that I made. The specific video is just called all class traits and traceries at the Isengard level 75 legendary server, right? So if your class guide isn't up yet, use that guide, because that guide will at least tell you traceries to get at this level cap and what your trait points should look like at this level cap. The future class guides will just go more into about gear, but eventually you'll kind of figure out that all the gear is kind of the same in that you don't need to focus on mastery, you need to focus on crit, so your main stat is ignored, focus on crit, and focus on morale. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye-bye!